Beep, beep. My hat!
Alright, so we have our two-wheel drive slash. We're going to start the teardown. We're actually going to start tearing down the rear part of the vehicle. So in order to remove the wheels, you just need a 7mm driver. And remember, just hold the wheel here together to the arm, and then just go left. And that's it. And I'm holding right here. And the reason why I'm holding here is I don't want, as I'm loosening the nut, I don't want the wheel to come out, because then it's just going to spin and nothing's going to happen. And I want that to stay. That's the reason why. So once you remove the wheels, usually what I like doing is, since we're taking the whole rear end off, is I'll just put the nut right on, just kind of hand thread it. And that's it. So now, in order to remove the rear off of here, I'm going to have to do a variety of things. One, I have to remove this little screw here that holds down the wires for the ESC. So take the ESC off, and so just unplug, pull the wires, and just undo the screw. And you don't have to remove it all the way, just loosen enough and these will come right out. And that is it. So once these wires are loose, you're going to have two screws right in there. You're going to need your 2mm driver, and these screws are this one here and that one there. So just remove those two screws completely. And always use quality tools. Don't cheap out on tools. You can use the tools provided by Traxxas, those little Allen wrenches, but it's going to take forever and your fingers are going to be hurting. So just invest in actual drivers. These are far more comfortable on your hands and fingers. And one came out. The other one's there, but it's loose, so I'm going to ignore it. All right. Over here, once you flip it over, you have to remove this screw, this one, those two, and then these four. These you're going to use a 2mm driver. Actually, you don't have to remove these. You can just remove these here, and this will slide out. So 2mm driver for these two. And then you're going to use a 2.5mm driver for the other four. And I do recommend MIP for tools for RC hobbies. There's other tools out there. Some of them have really fancy handles. You don't really need them. These plastic ones work great. The other thing too is if something were too tight and you couldn't loosen it, you can always put a box wrench in here and then just turn. Don't use pliers, you'll destroy it. Just use a box wrench and turn. And we have just one more screw to go. And I am saving all the screws because I will be reusing them. So now, this actually keys in, so you're going to have to sort of pull at an angle and then slide off. And that's it. So these are the ones you're trying to jump the transmission over. These here. That's what's keyed in. And here's the other screw. So there we go. So this is the removal of the rear end. That's all you have to do. In order to install, you just slide this at an angle. And here's the side view. You would slide this at an angle, and then you would just clip on. Well, actually, go here in the bumper like this at an angle, right? Slide them in here, and then once they're in there, just drop it, and that's it. Again, to remove, you're going to lift, slide out. And here you have complete rear end off of your Traxxas / two-wheel drive. Now, we're going to continue with the removal of the shocks. So, removal of the shocks is pretty simple. You just need a 2mm driver, and you're going to remove these top screws. So you have two top screws, and you may have to remove these shocks to put oil on them. Maybe the caps flew off. That's a common problem with these shocks, to be honest. Or you're replacing them with the GTR shocks, which I would recommend you do. So we're just going to set that one there with the corresponding hardware. And you remove the other two. And save the screw, there it is. And that is all you need to do to remove the shocks. Now, if you wanted to put the shocks at a different angle, you could go ahead and do that at this point for the reinstallation. All right, so now we need to remove the rear bumper, and maybe you're replacing the bumper or you're just taking it off. Maybe you're putting the small one that comes off of a, what am I thinking, a Bandit, which is much smaller. Actually, it's the same small piece, you just remove this, but we're going to take the whole thing off. You could be replacing the transmission. Something that also happens once in a while is these screws will back out, and when they back out, it only holds the arm on one point. Then you'll hit something, break off the arm. If you're really unlucky, you'll actually break the transmission case, at which point you have to remove the rear bumper in order to replace these two pieces of plastic, and you have to just take everything off. So the screws, we removed one on that side, you're going to be removing this one here on this side. And once you do this, so this one's a pretty long one, and I think I should have removed the motor. Alright, this one's loose. Should have taken the motor out. Makes it easier. But these are the two screws that hold the bumper in here, right in there, small one, and then the long one over here. Once you do that, you have just one more screw right here. The bumper is held by 3 screws, and they are all 2mm long screws. Now, when you're setting things aside, one of the things that I like doing is the following. If you recall, the long screw came here. So I'm actually just going to set that screw there once I remove the button. Actually, I'll place it there now. And this one's out. All right. There we go. So I'll just leave the screws in the corresponding slots. That way I know where they go. So again, short screw, well, if you're looking at rear or front, short screw goes on the right, medium screw goes top left, long screw goes bottom left. And that's the bumper. All right, now we're going to be removing the motor. So in order to remove the motor, just bring the wires through, just like this. And you need to remove this cover, and there are 2 screws, one here at the top, one at the bottom, and you just need your 2mm driver, and you're just going to take the driver, And we're going to loosen the 2 screws, and in order to not lose them, I will be leaving them with the cover. You can put them in the holes, or you can just flip the cover over and put them in there. The bottom one is shorter, the top one is the longer one. So I'm just going to leave them on the cover, and now all you have to do is remove this one, and the motor will slide out, and you need your 2mm driver. And because this is a very large spur gear, I am not going to be able to remove that top screw. So I'm just going to remove this one, let the motor drop a little, and then I'm going to remove this one over here. And that is it. It should slide right off. So the motor is now removed. Also keep in mind this little plastic plate here. And that is the motor. The next step that we have, usually you're going to be replacing these rear hub carriers, and these are very weak. They break easily. So you're generally going to be replacing them with RPM or another option. We're actually going to be using another option for a build video. But for this, you will need a 2.5mm driver. Now keep these pins, because you will be needing them. And these just loosen out. Now a little recommendation when reassembling, if it's pins on the right, install everything rear to front. So you're going to flip everything on the right. If it's on the left, leave it front to rear. But that loosens that, and this will loosen this over here. And at this point, I can go ahead and remove these nuts that I placed in the beginning after I removed the wheels. All right. These hexes should come out, but if they don't, you can actually just pry them out. And you can use just a flathead screwdriver. Any size, you can use a number 2, for example, or you can use something a little larger. And the only thing that you have to do is you kind of peek inside, you try to see where the pin is, so that when you lift, see, so the pin was across this way, so I'm lifting, so there's the pin, so I'm lifting here. This is where I'm lifting, so I'm sticking a screwdriver in there and I'm lifting. Keep the ball bearings, you will be needing the bearings. Also, if you're replacing them, this would be a step you would need to do. There's the shim, you will keep the shim, the pin, and we're almost finished removing the arms. Well, one arm, and then just this one, back this one out. Keep a note, the inner pins are longer than the outer pins. This will remove your arm, but it will also free this. So if you need to remove your shaft, that's the way you would do it. Now we're going to do the other arm. And that's it. So this is how you remove the arms. Now, all we have to do is just remove this here. Pin. And that actually frees it up. Now we're going to remove the rear carriers, and for this one you're going to need your 2mm driver for the rear carriers. And all you need to do is just remove this screw here on the top. Keep the screw, do not lose it. And here, let's say you're replacing it, you're going to have to remove those bearings. So if you look in there, you can see there's a gap between the two bearings, a small little gap. Just take your driver at an angle, like this, and then just push one of the bearings out. And just go top, bottom, just move it around. Right? You can go side, side. You can flip it, try doing the front one first. And the bearings will just pop out. There we go. And then here, right, you're just going to place this there. Bearings will pop out. Now you have the bearings, and there's one carrier. These, again, they break very, very, very easy. So they easily break. So this is probably, if you keep using the stock Traxxas rear carriers, you're going to be replacing them left and right. Just invest in RPM or other options, or get the Traxxas aluminum ones. Although, I'll be honest, I do not recommend doing these in aluminum, because if you take a hard enough hit, they will bend. And then you can't really straighten them, because once you straighten them, they get weak and will eventually break. Sometimes you can break them as you're straightening them. So bearings are coming out, and that is that. So we have the two rear carriers. All right, at this point we want to remove these shafts. And the way we remove them is we use a 1.5mm driver. And there's a pin in here. One side has the actual screw heads, the other side does not. So you want to make sure you're on the correct side. This side has the screw head. The other side does not. That's just the pin. It's a little screw that goes in there. So you go here, and you just twist out. There's actually not that much thread in there. It's probably about 3mm at most of thread. And then you just slide it out. So as you can see, threads are just here. And then once you have this, you just pull out that little shaft there, and you just go to the next one, and you repeat the process. So just look for the part that has the hex, and that is it. So here, we're just going to loosen again. We're going to loosen. And then just remove. I actually cannot fit my finger in there to remove it. There we go. All right, and save them because you will be needing them. And that is it. So we have removed the rear shafts. Keep that there. And we're almost finished with the rear disassembly.